Bucky Barnes is back, but this time in a new position. Tell us where we find him at the start of the film and what his state of mind is.
His state of mind is questionable, as always. It is sort of a passive-aggressive, dormant state of mind. The suit feels uncomfortable. Maybe subconsciously he's growing his hair out, hoping someone will object. Basically, he's just trying to get someone to, pay attention. And I'm not sure he knows how to do it very well as a congressman, but he is trying to use it in a way to keep an eye on Valentina and what she's up to, because he's got a real big suspicion about her.
Wyatt, where is John Walker now, and how is he faring after the events in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
John Walker's been in some undisclosed location for months, presumably murdering people, right? Because he can do that now. Works for Val. And you find him in a precarious situation with three other of our lovely castmates and Thunderbolts, soon to be. And they have to figure out how to get out of the situation that they're in, and by doing this, they become more fully realized versions of themselves and incredible teammates on the most incredible team that the MCU has ever seen. Right?
What about Bob?
Besides Marvel's signature action, there's a lot of humor in the film despite its darker tone. As an actor, how important was it to you to have moments of levity in the story?
Very. When a movie takes itself too seriously, it can really be not fun. And part of the experience of being in a Marvel movie is like, let's have some fun. That's part of the experience. Is like, I'm going away from my home to have this 2-hour experience where I'm gonna laugh and cry and feel all the emotions. And humor is an important part of our daily life to keep you feeling fresh and excited. So to me, it's very important.
Humor, definitely, of course, but also I think it's getting the audience to invest and to care about these people and these people together. And I think it's really interesting because I really do feel like everybody was a good fit. I mean, even on and off screen.
Mm-hmm.
And just personality-wise and mindset. And I think if you understand what these characters are trying to learn from or get through, then I think you're invested and you want to see them succeed.
Mm-hmm.
The practical sets were big builds. Which one was your favorite and why?
New York streets.
I think the streets at the end of the third act, that was pretty epic. The fact that we were actually
There's
driving.
Just moments where you're like, you know those moments where you're like, you kind of can't see the end of the set or whatever, and you just peek out a doorway and you're like, I'm in New York right now. Like, it's incredible what they can do with building sets. And then my shock is always like, they're gonna take this down. They just built this to look exactly like 7th Avenue and wherever, and it's going to be taken down and just thrown away. I mean, it's gonna be trash. Like, how? What? But that was, I thought, incredibly well done.
Yeah, no, well, it's amazing. Also, it's just the fact that it's just so much more interesting when people build something than when you see it on a computer screen. It just always, and especially if you're there and you've got stuff to really react to, and I think it changes everything. But it changes the work environment, which is why I feel like we have to keep the practical aspect of it. Like everybody, the crew, the extras, like all those people kind of.
There's a sense of ownership over it from like the people who built this thing.
Yeah, and you want to like you're excited about it. You want to serve it in a different way than it's kind of like when it's just
screen and they'll do it afterwards. It's not as cool.
Tell us about shooting the chase scene in the Utah desert.
Ooh, well, it was hot. It was hot.
It was
100
hot,
degrees.
but it was super It was hot. You're right.
It was so hot.
But it was amazing when the sun was going down, and then there was
Yeah.
a bit over
Cool.
there where it looked really pretty, and again, just to be able to be out there. Again, everyone was looking. Jake was really happy about. We're here.
Yeah.
We're on location. This
Yeah.
actually exists.
Right, we're doing it. But it also felt indie in a weird way because you're like out in the middle of nowhere. We've all done, you know, a lot of indie movies in this cast, and I swear to God, when you're in the back of that limo, like you could be in the back of the limo anywhere with any crew at any movie I've ever done. Just take off the suit and put on something else, and you're just in a hot metal box and like acting. And that was what was so I love. You know, you can't fake that. You know, it's nothing. It wasn't a process trailer. It was a process trailer for some of it. What am I trying to say? It wasn't the screen, the volumes that they use now that are like, you know, they're great, but they're not the real thing. And Sebastian's the elements that you had of riding the motorbike and flipping all of those cars flipping, those were real. Like Shane was driving the car when it flipped and flipped 80 times, and like all those are real things happening.
Yeah,
cool.
I think, and I also just think audiences can tell that. They tell the difference.
Yeah.
What was it like working with the director, Jake Schreier?
Jake is very dry, but very funny and cautiously optimistic, I would say.
Cautiously optimistic is good.
But he had like a really good handle on what this is, I guess, what this movie is, what the tone is, and what makes this movie. How is it funny and different than something like Guardians of the Galaxy, or how is it as real as something like Captain America: Winter Soldier? And he found its own thing. Nothing's too much, or everything's just enough.
He had a very specific vision of what he wanted to make in terms of emotionally, and it wasn't always like, you know, he came at it from, this is not perfect. And anytime I've ever done a movie, no matter what the movie was or show was, which is, this isn't perfect yet, but we're gonna make it as good as we can, and not like, I'm amazing, I'm really good, and I know what I'm doing, and so if you don't do it this way, it's not gonna work. If you come at it that way, I'm always like, oh God. But if it's like that, it's always been a wonderful experience, and Jake is inherently that way. I think everybody had this feeling of like, oh my God, I think he's actually listening. Where like a lot of times you'll hear a director listen and you're like, I don't know if they heard anything I just said, and then the changes don't happen and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Jake listens, he hears you. We were rehearsing and debating and coming up with that last scene until the day we did it, and it still wasn't perfect. You know, it worked. I mean, major changes that we were making because it just wasn't work. And then we kind of found the thing that clicked that last night in that hotel room we were all sitting in, where like, you know, it was just felt like we were gonna blow up the movie, but that was the magic sauce, and we got it to a point that really worked. And yeah, Jake allowed for
and a lot of I mean, he never
patience.
lost. It's cool. It's
So
just it's a
patient.
lot to do, and
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure, and so anyway, he's great.
Last question. If you could use only one word to describe this film, what would it be and why?
One word, emotional.
I want to just say integrity.
That's good. I like that. Integrity. Why?
Well, because I think it's about, honestly, it's about ownership. It really is, or maybe that's it. It's ownership, right? And I think ownership as it pertains to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and being able to, you know, that's what I think all of these characters are complex in that way, and they're three-dimensional because they have all those parts, and they're not. And I love that the movie is not trying to make any one of them more heroic than they've earned it for them to be, and it's not running away from showing how flawed they are, and I think that's one thing that will always separate this movie from the rest.
Perfect. Thank you both.